the way that we're going to run this is not having a separate, dealership brand and this and that. It's going to be essentially, buy my cars. Mm-hmm. My cars are for sale. We're going to just simply run it through a legitimate licensed dealership.
Yeah. Moving on. Next topic.
We're going to start a car dealership. So, yeah, because we don't have enough going on. So the reason why we're going to do this is because I have, how many cars are back there? There's 8 cars.
There's 8 back there.
I have
motorcycle,
the bike, so 9 vehicles. Then I have the 2 buses and my own car. So there's 12?
Yeah.
12 vehicles essentially. So with that said, it makes more sense for me the goal was always never to only have, I never wanted to have this many cars and not do anything with them, mm-hmm. right? I always knew when I got my first Lamborghini, I never wanted to buy a Lamborghini just to have a Lamborghini. It was always, okay, I'm going to get out there on the internet. I'm going to start leveraging the cars for notoriety and clout and all that kind of shit, and essentially the horror.
Because everyone knows the number one currency nowadays is attention.
100%. Yeah. So I ended up getting these cars, got a lot of attention online, especially when I got that SV, the Lamborghini Aventador SV. I got a lot of attention because apparently 5 years ago it was a big deal to get a Lamborghini SV. Mm-hmm. Now it's fuck all because people are getting Paganis and Bugattis and Koenigsegg's and all these other wild cars, so it's not even a thing anymore, really. But
yeah,
the idea was always to start, something with respect to turning and burning the cars.
And if it wasn't for your SV, I wouldn't be working here.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you want to tell that story real quick?
Yeah.
As justification for this actually working?
Literally. Yeah. Cause I graduated I was just graduating from my MBA, and I knew that I was very entrepreneurial and I wanted to work on a bunch of cool things, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to go work just some boring corporate job. and so I was always fascinated with these serial entrepreneurs online that always feel like they're so far removed from you as a newly graduated student. And then I saw your car at Good Life, because I think I had already quit working at that Good Life because I was a personal trainer there before. But I was back there working out, and I saw your car roll up to right by those windows where the dumbbell section is. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, fuck, that's not just some 10-year-old Lamborghini that costs $120,000 mm-hmm. or whatever. It takes a certain caliber of person that's not just working a 9-to-5 job to afford a car like that, right? And so I asked the person on the front desk, I'm like, hey, do you know who owns that thing? I literally was walking around the gym looking for some old fuck that I was like, okay, who's this person? Maybe he's a real estate developer or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I knew a couple of the guys just from working there for a few years. I knew a couple of the guys that did have nice cars that were always in their 50s and 60s that were either in real estate or steel or whatever. And so I met them before, and so I was looking for someone older, and then they're like, oh, it's that guy right over there, and you're wearing a Canadian Protein shirt, a tank top or whatever. And I was like, oh, who the fuck is this guy? I'm like, he must be from Toronto or something visiting. And they're like, no, he owns Canadian Protein. And then so I looked it up online, and because I was already familiar with the brand, and I was like, holy fuck, I've literally bought from this company before. And I'm like, that's
crazy.
Wild.
I find that crazy.
Yeah.
And you weren't local when you bought it. You were up in Montreal or something, right?
So I started working here, I think 2018, and I started buying the product in the store from probably one of your wholesalers.
Oh, you bought it in the store?
In the store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the store, probably 2014, 2015. Oh, wow. Maybe even 2013. I don't even know. What did the bags look like back then?
Fuck, those...
You had the large 5 kg ones, right? Because I bought one of those ones.
Would they be black? Would they have been black?
Oh, I can't remember.
With just a square thermal label on it?
It might have been, actually, yeah. Because essentially what happened was I was talking to the guy, and I was looking at all the well-known brands. And I was like, fuck, these things are Optimum Nutrition was probably the number one brand back then.
Okay.
And I was like, fuck, these are all so expensive. And I was asking the guy, I'm like, do you know a company that, or a product that is high quality, but just not this jacked up fucking price? And he's like, dude, Canadian Protein is the way to go. It's high quality. He's very basic packaging, but if you're looking for bulk, high quality, whatever, this guy guy was literally advocating it, and it was in a supplement store in the basement of a shopping center in downtown Montreal.
That's so wild. That's so crazy.
This might have been I don't think it was 2015 because I finished school in 2016. I probably was 2013 or 2014.
It's so wild. Not understanding like the reach that the brand has, because like I'll go to, last time I was in Toronto,
that was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I'll go to Toronto, like I went to the Eaton Center like a couple months ago with like Scott and my buddy Rob there, and like I was walking around walking around there, like I saw our hats, I saw a couple of our t-shirts, like it's crazy seeing that shit. And it's so cool seeing that. I can't tell you how cool that is.
Yeah, because often when like I go on vacation, I'll wear like Canadian Protein shit. So even like I'll walk on a plane and then be like, "Oh, Canadian Protein!" Like people like recognize it. Like when you're walking like onto the plane, people are all sitting there.
Yeah. I've gotten that too on a plane, and fuck, it's actually it's I never say, like, because people will come up to me and be like, hey, where'd you get the shirt? Or hey, I love Canadian Protein, you take it to them. Like, yeah, I take it. Like, I never say I'm the owner.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, I think it's so much more interesting that, maybe they'll, who knows, find out that I was at some point and be like, oh my God, that was, I think that's a cooler story. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, what am I going to be like? Yeah, I own it. Hey, everybody. Hey, everyone. I own it, by the way. Yeah. Just in case nobody didn't know, I do right here. Yeah. Like what a loser that guy is. But anyways, so keep going.
So to kind of take this full circle. So when I heard like that story from the attendant at Good Life, the front desk attendant, I was like, fuck, like there's no one in Windsor that I have ever heard of that has this sort of that's younger, that's not like in their fucking 50s or 60s, that's so archaic in the way of business, that's doing something that isn't an emerging market, right? Like something online, like not fucking like that's in an old industry, and doing cool shit, and obviously doing well for himself as well, that like can really I feel like kind of teach me a lot. So I was just like, yo, I'm gonna hit him up on Instagram. And a few times later, and what's funny is like if you go to in my DMs, if you go to the Canadian Protein chat and scroll all the way up, there's still that first message. That's so which crazy. Is like, hey,
you should send that to Connor.
I literally will. Yeah. And it's like, hey, I just graduated from my MBA, or like, I will be soon. I'm looking for like I'd love to like work with you, whatever. And finally you get back and it's just like, what can you do?
Is that what I said? Because that was me at the time.
Yeah, it's like, what can you do? And
that's so fucking funny.
And I think it said something along the lines of like fucking anything. And
do you have it right there?
Yeah. So I was like, so I will screenshot this and send it to Connor. Yeah. So, hey, I just finished my MBA experience working as a personal trainer. Do you have any openings in your company? I would love to be part of your team. I looked at your website, couldn't see a career section. And you're like, hey, Clark, we are expanding and maybe looking for a few new positions. What are you interested in? And I was like, great news. I'd be interested in any positions, but especially ones involving strategy, marketing, sales, business development, etc. And you're like, okay, send me your resume to your email, your old one, the Gmail one. And that was March 1st, 2019.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I sent the first message February 21st, 2019.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I got it like a month later?
No, it was just when you finally like responded back.
Yeah.
I'll screenshot this.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So anyways.
So the whole point of that is, so it literally, it was that car that inspired a sense of like, oh, like there's this culture that's there, led obviously by the owner, this guy. The culture there is something that I want to be a part of that goes beyond just like a regular boring ass workplace, right? Because I knew like I love being creative and solving problems and building businesses, and I like didn't know this at the time, but it's like all the shit that I wanted to be a part of, that I didn't want to just be like stuck in this job that I hated. I'm like, I want to really work on something cool. And so that the car was the thing that originally was like, oh, like I want to work for this guy.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. So we're gonna do the dealership because, I've got 21,000 followers on YouTube. I don't really do anything with it anymore. I don't pay attention to anything on there. I don't. I'm not leveraging the cars really anymore. I'll post up a video on my Instagram under Lambo Lapdog every once in a while, and it still does well. And I'm just not active anymore. And 20,000 something, or almost 20,000 followers on Instagram, and maybe a couple thousand or so on TikTok or whatever, which I should be way more, but I don't do fuck all with. So the original idea with these cars was to leverage them for attention, then to get out of them quick, and then get new ones and get new ones and get new ones. Well, that never happened. I just kept buying them and then not selling them. But the cars that I do have, I truly do like, but were in fact purchased to sell. I've simply never got around them because I've never really established a solid funnel in order to make it work. And in the province of Ontario, you do, in order to buy and sell cars, on a routine, at least a routine basis, you do need a license with OMVIC. So even though you could probably get away with doing it, under the table, or not under the table, but you know what I'm saying, without a license. If you're doing it to scale, and maybe not even to scale, I don't know what that threshold is, and maybe somebody would be able to mention what kind of threshold that is, because if you were to talk to OMVIC, I'm sure that they would say, well, there is no threshold, you have to have it, but I'm sure there is some sort of threshold before raising any kind of flags, and I'm sure somebody listening to this would probably even know. But nonetheless, we're going to establish a dealership because we have these cars. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get in and out of the cars. We're going to create content with the new stock that we bring in. And once the content is completed, we're going to actually, well, as soon as the car comes in, we're probably going to put it up for sale. And then we're going to create content from that car. And all of the content is going to mention that we're, cars for sale or whatever, DM me or whatever. But everything's the way that we're going to run this is not having a separate, dealership brand and this and that. It's going to be essentially, buy my cars. My cars are for sale. We're going to just simply run it through a legitimate licensed dealership, which is going to be the, true corporation that's going to be running the show behind the scenes, but it's going to be, essentially my personal brand putting the cars out because that's where the attention is.
And the flip side of that as well, on the buying side, you mentioned that there's an advantage to having a dealership license for buying as well.
Yeah, you get access to car auctions and, different, I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know all of the benefits of having a dealer license. That's a question for Jesse more so. But there are certain things that it's almost like I'm assuming it's probably similar to being a realtor, right? You go through the process and you have access to the MLS now, and not everybody does. And you get to list on the MLS, and you get to, do this and buy and sell through different types of, avenues. And so I'm sure there are some other benefits that, I'm probably not aware of. I'm not 100% certain, but I think the thing that's going to differentiate us from other potential dealerships is our ability to predict certain demand of certain cars. And Jesse's good at that. Jesse's very good because he's very in tune with the car market. And he has not been wrong with all the cars that I've bought. I think there was only a couple that I said that I wanted that did pop off in value, and the other ones he was like, you should buy these cars, and lo and behold, they've all doubled or tripled in value over a very short period of time. And he's very good at finding them, and he's very good at predicting that certain cars are going to pop in value. So without him, this doesn't work, and nor would I really be interested, because I'm actually not as interested in cars as I thought I was before owning them. I think what interests me is the newness of things, and I think you and I have talked about that because I'm always trying to do some new shit. Whereas now, I'm trying to really only focus on. I made a tweet about this actually the other day, where the real value in what we have or what I have is not what I originally thought in terms of increasing my net worth or making more money even. is starting new businesses. It's not that. It's leveraging the current ones that I have and also coming up with synergies for the existing businesses that I have.
Yeah.
So this is
like you mentioned that tweet, the ability to start a meal prep company out of the kitchen at the golf course.
Yeah. So like a no-brainer, right? Which we still have to get on a little bit more.
Yeah. Over the weekend I created a like a long list of marketing ideas for each one of our like startup brands of just being like, what is like the simplest things that we could put a couple $100 into for marketing, just to at least get a little bit more traction going.
For sure.
Yeah.
And these things, like again, and the car dealership is something that, you know, I have the space. I have the cars. I have the
videographer, photographer.
I have all of the ability to create the content, to promote or to sell the cars or to advertise the cars or market them. Yeah. So I have all of this available.
You have Jesse, who's an expert at
I have
understanding cars in the
everything.
Market.
Yeah. What I don't have is the actual technical things, which is arguably the easiest because here's a system. Follow the system. Yeah, it's all of these other nuances, and the space is obviously a technical thing, but I have it already. The cars I already have. That's a hard thing to attain, right? The $1 million worth of cars. That's not an easy feat. Yeah, and then obviously bringing on the right people to make this stuff happen. That's the harder part, right? So all of the pieces are there, and then probably the hardest thing to put together is the attention. Yeah. Which I also already have. That's probably the hardest thing to get. Yeah. Is how do you build the community where you're going to be getting enough attention to make it work, which I already have. So everything's already in place. It's leveraging everything that I do anyways, because there was really only two options, like I was telling you. It was either number one, sell all the cars and be done with them, because they're, the things that you own end up owning you. And right now we're scaling to a point where I don't want to be brought down by the things that I own. Yeah. Or I do this option. And I think this option would help build even more of a presence and more attention that could feed into everything else that we're doing. So I think that this is going to be a very interesting venture.